All right, guys, let's talk about what we can do to have the ability to ride faster so we are actually safer.
Stay with us, ride fast!
Find a little twisty road that you can really get different speeds, different gears, different turns. But again, you're looking at condition of the road. You don't want any driveways coming out into the road. You don't want any gravel possibly. And it could be a road that's not busy.
No traffic, no cops.
So go through what things stress you out when you're riding and try to find a spot. Do your research, search around. It's well worth it to find that road that can really help boost your confidence. And I think it's a lot like driving a new car.
Hey, that's a nice car, man.
Whenever you buy a new car, yeah, you know how to drive, but it's always a new car. You're not used to the size of the car, how it brakes, how it handles, how you can park it.
Park it close by, unless you want to know what else is good for you.
You have to spend time in the car to learn that. And again, same thing with a bike. You have to learn the controls, learn how it feels, learn how it's balanced. So there's a lot of things that you can increase your ability by doing, like you said, those small things in the parking lot. Again, just to calm the mind and get used to it. You got to spend time on the bike to do it. You have to spend hours and miles, but it's doable.
I mean, it's doable, but
Yeah, the track day is, I think, a crash course, super fast way to do it. Go through the mental checklist on what bothers you, what can you control, and jump into it.
Yeah, one thing I would just add on the parking lot thing, not all parking lots are equal. So if you find a parking lot with a bunch of oil spots, that's not a good one. You want to find a good, clean one that's going to have a consistent grip.
I'm trying to get a grip on this. I really am.
One thing you can do though too, if you're kind of wondering, oh well, what am I operating at right now? Am I at 75%? Am I at 80%? You can kind of in your mind, if you're going around a turn, for example, okay, well, what if there's a spot I need to go around? Could you straighten up and then dive back into the turn and not freak out about it?
First rule, don't freak out.
And you can practice those things. And also, if you're going around a turn, you can take the outside and go, okay, well, I'm very comfortable with this speed, and then maybe just sharpen the turn a little bit. And if something freaks you out, you can always go back to the line you were on and loosen it up a little bit and practice that way as well.
I need to practice, guys.
When I was riding just a couple weeks ago and try to ride with a cushion that I feel comfortable with, I was going over a blind hill and I don't know what's on the other side, but I don't know what oncoming traffic looks like. And as you can see, when I'm going through this video, I like to ride right in the middle of my lane because I don't know if there's a wide load coming, a tractor coming, and I want options. So when I crested this little hill, there was a dead fox right in the middle of my lane. And since I had that cushion, I didn't freak out. I was able to swerve and use those techniques that I trained in the parking lot as I'm riding without any debris. So again, that's a perfect example of a cushion. So I didn't freak out, hit it, swerve and wreck, or even get all that roadkill squirted all over me.
It's kind of gross.
Yeah.
And so having that ability to do that, you enjoy it more.
I would also add that if you're white knuckling it, if your adrenaline's pumping, you're operating at the higher end of your cushion, and you just need to be aware of that. And if you're working on something, that's one thing, but that's not a good place to be all the time because it's going to catch up to you.
You know it. We track them, you whack them.
And so the things that I wrote down here to kind of question yourself when you're riding and do a mental checklist is having following distance.
yeah, you're following too close.
You want to have that reaction time. It's very easy to control that. If you're following behind somebody, you can see it in front of the road. You have a greater chance to react. Another thing, say you're on the freeway or somewhere else and you're passing somebody, mentally think about that. It's like, okay, am I nervous passing? Just think about when you were first driving a car. Were you nervous getting on the freeway? How do you feel getting on the freeway? How do you feel riding next to a semi or coming up on a semi? Those things you got to start thinking about, asking yourself, and start creating that cushion. Practice what feels uncomfortable.
Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things.
So you can get more comfortable. And you could touch on this a little bit. There's a danger to having more ability because you start getting complacent and you start becoming cocky without really knowing you're being cocky. You just get complacent because you've done it so long, you haven't had an accident. It's, second nature, but you tend to put your guard down.
Sooner or later, I'm going to catch you with your guard down.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly the term that they actually have a term for pilots, and I think it's called the 500th hour. But there's a certain time frame when you're a pilot that most pilots make a mistake, and it's where they're feeling confident. It's where they're not nervous anymore, and so they're not doing all the checks and evaluations that they would normally do because they feel like, I got this. I've done this plenty of times before. But again, that's where they find the majority of pilot errors happen. And so, yeah, the same thing happens with really anything, right? It's just human nature.
I'm a student of human nature.
And actually, that you make a good point in terms of like, are you nervous on the freeway? Some of this cushion that we're talking about, if you're operating at 100%, is not going to be fixed necessarily by practicing in a parking lot, right? Because you can't practice getting on the freeway in a parking lot, right? Some of that is going to have to just be exposure and experience. And there's nothing inherently dangerous about getting on the freeway and riding, in traffic. You just want to make good decisions and all that. And so I would say the answer to increase your cushion or your skill level there is just doing it more, right?
You should do it more often.
If freeway intimidates you, well, conquer it, get some exposure to it. Don't let it beat you, and get comfortable with that. And just make sure you've got a good road strategy and good plan. We'll have some more videos on that, lane choice and how that goes. But yeah, that's the other side of it. It's not all just pure skill, but it's also some exposure and just getting used to being out in the open on a motorcycle and not in a cage.
Well, at least it gets you out in the open air.
And that goes to our skill tree where you have all the different categories of riding, accelerating, braking, cornering. Self-evaluate. Again, do that checklist. What do I feel uncomfortable doing? And make a plan to go and do that. And be vigilant. Don't just say, oh yeah, I'm just going to go on my bike and just ride it just because you like to ride.
Now, what's wrong with that?
Every time you ride needs to be training, needs to be that mental training and as well as riding. And even if it's, say, off season, say you live in an area like us that it gets cold and you can't ride.
That is the saddest thing I have ever heard in my life.
You can also mentally think, hey, if I was riding my bike, what would I do in this situation? The more you do it, more repetition, the greater mental ability you'll have to think through problems when they arise.
Either way, problem solved. Wait right here.
So, I would say that the minimum standard that you'd probably be shooting for is to be comfortable going a little bit faster than ambient traffic. The main goal would to be able to go a little bit faster than surrounding traffic and be operating at, say, 75% with a comfortable skill cushion. Ideally, if you can go much faster than the speed limit.
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, I'm not saying going faster than the speed limit. But if you were comfortable going much faster than the speed limit and still had a cushion, that's even better because not a whole lot is going to shake you.
Nothing scares me.
I remember going down the freeway one time and there was a bucket blowing through the lanes and I was able to easily dodge it. Didn't freak me out. Just, whipped around it, swerved pretty hard, but it wasn't a stretch.
Not the bucket.
And my wife is actually driving behind me in a car. And I was thinking, oh, she must think, that was crazy, but it didn't get my attention. I mean, I was just able to deal with it. But if I'd have been nervous and doing 100%, I would have probably target fixated and hit the bucket and it would have been bad.
Kick the bucket.
Just having the ability to go a little bit faster than surrounding traffic and have a significant cushion is a really good goal.
And what you were saying with that, with target fixation, everything goes down to the way our brains work. And if we understand that, if we're stressed out, we're in fight or flight mode, we target fixate, we stress out, we forget how to choose and go through our different options.
What are my options?
So the whole premise of this whole video with a cushion is to make sure your mind is relaxed and calm in whatever environment you're doing. And so that's why we're trying to walk you through how to do that and what to look for.
It's about lowering the stress and everything that comes along with the stress.
No meat, no dairy, no toxins, no stress.
No fun.
And target fixation is an emotional response to stress. It's not anything else. If your stress is down, you've got a good cushion, you're not going to be near susceptible to those problems.
All right, next week we're bringing lane position, why it's important. Go ahead and like and subscribe and hang out with us next week.